Sotomayor.
It's
Figueroa es,
the corner de
Figueroa es
Fefianes.
el cuartel de abajo de este, el tercer cuartel. De abajo a la izquierda, ese es Figueroa. Casi no se ve.
Part of that one is Figueroa. He's in Marqués de Figueroa. ¿Y este qué siglo es?
Esto se terminó tal como está ahora sobre 1621.
It's the 17th
Pero se
century,
hizo sobre-
1621.
Se hizo sobre algo que ya existía.
¿Y cuántos años lleva haciendo vino? How many years have you been making wine?
Bueno, aquí vino se hizo siempre porque, por ejemplo, aquí dentro hay piedras de un antiguo lagar, pero con espíritu comercial, digamos, desde principios de los primeros años de 1904. Pocos años de casarse mi abuelo, que es la dueña de esto, que era mi abuela, empezó a hacer
This was
vino con
his
marca.
grandmother, and they've been making wine here since the early 20th century. And there's evidence of an old wine treading vat in here from much earlier.
Mi abuelo registró la marca Alvareño de Fefianes con la etiqueta actual en 1928.
In 1928, they registered the Palacio de Fefianes brand, and the label they still have. Still use that on the label.
Es la misma etiqueta, es muy parecida con la misma base y el mismo diseño que lo que seguimos utilizando hoy día todavía.
It changes very little bit. It changes a little bit, but still basically use the crest and what his grandfather started. And one a ver si me digas un poco de la filosofía tuya en hacer vino.
Bueno, nosotros lo primero que queremos es respetar, la autenticidad del albareño.
He says he tries to respect the authenticity of the Albarino grape.
Por lo tanto, procuramos huir de cualquier procedimiento o proceso que pueda enmascarar lo que es lo más puro del albareño, sus aromas.
He doesn't like to use any techniques that mask the purity of authentic Albarino. ¿Y los viñedos cuántos años tienen?
Aquí hay viñas que tienen más de 100 años.
He's got vines that he gets the grapes from vines that are more than 100 years old.
De los proveedores nuestros, la mayor parte de las viñas tienen por encima de 40 o de 50 años.
Yeah, most of his vines are 40 above, up to 100. Not all, obviously not all are 100 years old, but he has some. He works with some people who have vines that are 100 years old, and a lot of them are above 40, most of them.
Y muchos de los viñedos de donde nosotros obtenemos la uva, además proceden de esquejes de los viñedos originales del palacio.
Yeah, a lot of them come from the original base root of the wines that came from here, the Palacio.
Y por lo tanto, bueno, pues nosotros seguimos la línea clásica de elaboración, a pesar de que estamos haciendo vinos, como conoces, de filosofía moderna, pero con un espíritu de preservar el albareño sobre cualquier otra cosa.
He said the way of making is modern, but he tries to preserve the spirit of what Albarino was, classic Albarino. So he considers his wine to be classic, but modernized classic, which is what there are some good examples here in Spain of modernizing a classical thing. That is, just clean up technically a little bit the wine without losing the essence of what it was. And to me, this is the benchmark of how great Albarino can be. And it's very serious wine, and I call it a Grand Cru, even though it's not from a single vineyard. I doubt if, well, they're marked off in Burgundy, but this is Grand Cru quality, you'll see, I think. So, ¿y qué más?
Pues, ¿qué más te puedo contar sobre el albareño?
That's about it. His philosophy is authentic. Use techniques to modernize the wines, not in any market sense, but in a sense of technical correctness and stuff like that, but without losing the essence of what he thinks Albarino should be. And I agree with him 100%. I've never had anything really better that I can think of. So we'll go taste them, and you'll see. This is the Plaza de Armas here. You'll see it's the palace from the early 17th century. Got lemon trees growing here. When they have the Fiesta de Albarino, they have an official act with all the heads of government and everybody dressed in Galician costume, and here's where they have it. They put a stage up here, and everybody gathers out here in the courtyard, and it's quite a scene. They have a parade to come here with all the groups you saw the other day, the Brotherhood of Galician Wines, and other groups dressed in traditional costume. They play bagpipes, and it's quite colorful. It's the first weekend in August, no?
No, it's
First weekend in August,
Sunday.
Fiesta de Albarino. And they have stands down in front of the Parador where we're staying, and you can taste 20, 25, 30 wines. Juan has a stand down there, and so a lot of really good wineries, and some who are trying to make a name for themselves put stands down there. So you can taste 30, 40 wines, different wineries down there. And then they have a competition with 100, 130 wines over 2 or 3 days, and sometimes I come here to judge it. As one of the judges, there's several. There are quite a few Spanish writers, and we go out on a boat in the Rias and eat shellfish, and sing and dance and have. Has all the elements of a great white wine, like a Pullini or anything like that. It's different because it's Albarino, but it's got minerals. It's got that great glossy mouth feel. ¿Cuántos grados tiene, Juan? 13%. It's the right weight, not over 14.5 or anything like that. It's got this beautiful, limpid, brilliant, sort of wedding ring gold color, but not any gold that looks like it's going anywhere over the hill. It's just a natural gold of the Albarino grape. Great nose. Lychees sometimes. A lot of stone fruit. There's sometimes you get white peach. In other words, not so sweet peach, but that lovely white peach, and maybe lychees. And it's dry, and you get a nice kind of a little bit of a toast. There's no yeasty a little bit, but there's no wood on it at all, thank God. It's just pure Albarino, not goosed up with industrial yeast. Therefore, you don't get the banana and pineapple and all the tropical fruit things. You get soil married to great grape. So you get mineral tones married to really good grapes of 40 to 100 years old. Just the right amount of fruit. Structure, bracing, what you call grip, the kind of thing that holds it all together, gives it backbone, You agree, John? Or?
Yep, love it. Integrate.
And this is just 2007. You'll see he's probably got a couple of others here that are a little older. This wine ages. I've had it back 10 years. Great white wines will age, and it's got the acid and everything to carry it so that it doesn't start to go over the hill. And that's the kind of wine you can put in your cellar. It's the antidote for Chardonnay. What I sometimes call grip, or it's a thing that really holds the structure of the wine together. It's the framework. And when you have this with food, that sort of fades into the background a little bit, and it throws up a more intense fruit than you get just tasting it by itself. That complements food. It doesn't do battle with food. It marries and complements food, especially the shellfish and the fish that they have here in Galicia. A little bit different flavors and stuff, but it's on that level to me.
It keeps interest. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
It goes with the food and it keeps your interest. It's like a painting. A painting that you keep going back to.
Yeah, and it evolves in the third glass, and that's the thing. If it calls you back to the glass, you don't get bored drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this is one of the 10 greatest white wines in Spain, and I'd put it probably in the 5 greatest. Until somebody makes a Godello that's at the proficiency level of this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think Godello will surpass Albarino, but this is the class of Albarino. There's some great Albarinos, Toforero, Paso de Señorans, but if I have to have one to take to the end of the world, it's Fefianes. Sobre Elías, or no sobre Elías, not on the lease. He does 6 months on a lease.
Por encima de los 30 meses de vida.
It's bottled after 30 months.
So there should be
This is
more
a 2008. No, we haven't tasted that. We're going to this.
Okay.
I like to see wines better after they're finished, because it's academic. Like I've quit, except a few cases where they're young fledgling wines and stuff. But I stopped tasting from barrel a long time ago. That's a bodeguero's job, you know.
Yeah.
And tasting from barrel is almost a conceit. I tasted a lot in Burgundy, and the wine's not made yet. One barrel is different from the other, and you need to see the assemblage. So I don't put much stock in barrel tasting. If you're a real pro, you can tell a lot of stuff, but you can also run a lot of nasty new wood over your palate in the process, and a lot of young tannins and acid. And
I'm not a fortune teller.
yeah, me neither. Exactly. And a lot of things that are not in a finished wine are masking it when at that stage when you're tasting from barrel and tasting. A lot of professionals don't agree with me, but I don't agree with a lot of professionals over a lot of things, so that's par for the course. Okay, here you've got an example where you can see a little bit of it in the finish, where the wood, what I call a wood curtain, usually falls in a lot of modern wines about 2/3 of the way across your tongue, and nothing passes beyond that afterward. This is not the case with this wine. He said, what do you think about the Maldita Madera in this wine, which is the goddamn wood? I hate oak, and I will tell you about that, but in this particular wine, it's really not marked that much. It's more like, I don't know, white Burgundy or something, but one that's judiciously treated in oak and aged in oak. So it's not over the top. I still prefer his pure, when we talk about pure Albarino, his Albarino is pure. The reason I hate oak is, I don't hate oak. Oak is a receptacle for aging wine, a barrel. The bigger the better, and the older, if it's well kept, the better, because new oak is a flavor, it's been used as a flavoring agent. And a lot of people came into the wine business in the last 10, 15 years who really didn't know anything about wine, and a lot of consultants who recommend 1,000 barrels of new oak at 600 euros a barrel and stuff like that, and fill up bodegas. If they're not getting a commission off of that, they're missing a damn good chance. Oak is a flavoring agent. Therefore, when they use it like that, it's a flavoring agent. Therefore, it's an artificial element in wine. When it's neutral and it's in a big barrel or a big tank or like an Alsace in a foudre, it causes an oxygen exchange that's beneficial many times to the wine. But when you mark a wine with it, and sometimes it's more marked, the flavor of oak than the flavor of the grape. It's above the right, it ought to be illegal as far as I'm concerned. I go to bed and I pray every night that I wake up and I pick up the newspaper and they'll find out that new oak causes cancer, so they'll ban it. I am a little bit radical, but you know, that's the way it is. I just hate wines that are marked with oak. The tannin in it is supposed to do this, it's supposed to fix color, and many other ways to do that kind of stuff. This wine is not really guilty of that, but there are thousands and thousands of wines I've had a taste over the last 20 years. They're starting to get away from it. The barrels cost too much money. We're in a time of crisis and economic downturn, big time. They're not going to be able to afford it, so a new religion is going to evolve. That new religion is going to be, we don't need so much new oak in our wines. As I've been telling you for 20 years, and now you've decided, after you've run those things across my palate for 20 years, that you don't need new oak in wines that much to do all these things they said they did. What mostly they did was cover up for people who didn't know how to make wine. You throw half the flavor of the wine in oak. All you have to do is buy good barrels, or barrels with a name. I'm much more in favor of, like Torres has a little bull hanging from the neck of the bottle. I'm much more in favor of getting toothpicks from Taranso, Radu, Demtos, Francois Fuere, and hanging them in a little plastic bag from the neck of the bottle. And if you want oak, you suck on that toothpick. Chúpate eso. Si quieres roble, pues chúpate el palillo este de Taranso, Radu y tal. Well, okay, I've ranted enough about oak, but I think you get the point. If you don't know how to use it, and some people know how to do it, like the French guy that we saw the other day, Dominique, a lot of French winemakers know how to use oak and not let it kill it, but a lot of people are doing something else that's interesting. They'll put 25% of the wine in new oak, the rest in the deposit take that out, put that in the tank, and then not let it dominate. Just let it do enough to give it some structure, and use it properly, and not use it as a flavoring agent to lean on. And people who develop a taste for oak, you know, I've wanted for a long time, John, to get into the business of spring water, and put it in new oak barrels, Radux, Limousin, this, that, and the other. So they like oak so much, they probably don't need the wine, they just need the water. So you put it in new oak, and we sell it to Coca-Cola after a year and get rich and get out of it. I'll never prefer this wine to the one we just had, the 2007, and some of its older ones that are pure Albarino, because it does take some edge off the purity of the fruit.
Tercer año. Albarino de Fefianes,
Tercer año.
Ese es 1583.
5083 is continuing. Lamadera.
Yeah.
His 1583 has oak, but it's not over the top. It's not marked structure of the wine. I still prefer the pure Albarino, but the oakiness is not overdone by any stretch. It's to me, it's sort of a 90-point wine, whereas the ones without it are several points higher. And now we're having a third year that's aged on. It's aged on the lees for 6 months, and they do a little batonnage, so you do get a leesiness to it, which again I think somewhat detracts from the purity of the first one that we had. But it's a good example of it, and again, not over the top. Everything in Fefianes is done with good taste and with restraint. Juan is not given to, comes from a titled family. It's been around for a long time, and not given to knee-jerk one direction or the other, you know, changing with styles just to be changing with styles. Talk about your 95, 96, 97 point wine. Holy, this wine is absolutely spectacular. We're talking about a wine that's coming up somewhere in 95, 96, 97 points if you care about 100-point scale, but this is a brilliant wine.
That's lovely.
Brilliant. This is a Grand Cru. If anything's a Grand Cru in Spain, this is. Incredible.
You know, it's like, it's got elements of a Chablis. I mean, it's just
that
totally...
Grand Cru Chablis is where,
Yeah.
when this is on its game, like this one is,
Right.
it reminds me of really good Grand Cru Chablis, except it's not calcium. It's another thing, it's crushed granite. It's a different mineral flavor.
But that underlying stone.
Yeah, yeah. And they say,
much like
you can't, the minerals can't come into wine.
Oh, of course
They're
they
full
do.
of it. They either ride in on the yeast, they ride in on the skins or something. They say they can't come through, but there's a thing that I have to show you. I forgot what it's called, but it's a thing that within the root structure that opens up. It's like a sluice gate that opens up for transference of cells and liquid and stuff inside a root. They say you can't absorb it through the root, but there's nothing that says you can't absorb the elements and they recombine or something and they pass through. There's a way it passes. We don't know yet.
You are what you eat.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the grape.
Yeah, and that's why roots that go down a long way in mineral are so minerally.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way that there's not a process. Harold McGee and I are fighting about this because
This is great.
we argue about it. Harold is a friend of mine. We argue about it. I said, you're wrong. You know, you're not a wine man and you're wrong about it, because wines that come off of slate soil over in Priorat and wines that come off slate soil in Ribera Sacra and in Bierzo, they have a slate taste to them that is the same. And it's not, one's Mediterranean, one's Atlantic. Mencía is a different grape than Garnacha and Cardeñena, but they have that underneath, they have that same graphite, lápiz, los dos. Y para negar que, y es una manera de hacer vino en la bodega. No me jodas, por favor. It's got the mineral, it's got the right acid, it's got the right fruit level. It'll open up even more with air and with food. But it's got great acid, and it's got depth of these flavors. You know, it comes right back in the back of the palate. Wow. It's almost like the older they get, the better they get. This one's very complex.
I love the
I think because of the age, the tendency would be to say this is even better than 2004. Got a feeling in a couple of years, the 2004
Where
will
it's
be
gonna be
where
killed.
this is.
Este lo probamos en el 2007.
No, the 2004 will exceed.
Sí, 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 sí.
Figura vertical.
Sí, sí.
Yo esto mejor ahora.
Sí, sí.
Está buenísimo.
I mean, here's another wine
Bueno,
that
va cambiando.
you want to get in a point
Tiene
system,
épocas
which a
que
lot of
sube,
people
hay
seem to
épocas que baja.
understand
Te lleva sorpresas
for
muy
a lot of
buenas,
reasons.
cuando
Complexity,
Claro,
but
nosotros con el vino
complexity.
de 2002,
Cleanliness, balance, mineral flavors, great fruit flavors, no signs of aging. It's signs of a wine that has matured into a great wine and doesn't feel like and taste like it's going anywhere downhill. It's just getting better as it gets older, which is amazing, which is what the greatest white wines in Burgundy were as well. But this doesn't have any oxidation tones or anything like that, and it doesn't have it in the color either. So you get the real color of Albarino, which is more golden than you expect it to be, and you kind of think that maybe it could be a little oxidizing or something. That's the color this grape produces. But look, this hasn't gone into some kind of gold chartreuse thing that's going downhill. No signs of oxidation or anything. And it's just, I mean, it's spectacular. This wine I have in my hand, this 2002, which was not supposed to be a great vintage, but sometimes a little bit of an off vintage in white wine or rosé is even better because you get a better acid level. We're talking about a 97, 98 point wine, in my estimation. After tasting a lot of white wines in Spain, this one, 2002, maybe because it's got now 7 years on it, is as good as white wine gets in Spain. There may be one somewhere better, but I don't know of it yet. Okay, pero es el maestro. Eres el maestro del vino blanco en España.
Pues te voy a decir por qué. Porque aparte de, bueno, primero el espíritu de la casa milagrosamente, misteriosamente se mantiene en los vinos. Es decir, es algo curioso, ¿no? Tú estás haciendo vino muchos años y hay algo que permanece. No sé si son las levaduras o son los fatos.
He has a man here. ¿Cuántos años tiene este Moncho?
Moncho debe tener ahora 50 años aproximadamente.
50 years old. This is one of the things behind every great wine. That's why sometimes I have quarrels with people who make wines by committee. Behind every great wine, there is a palate. There is somebody who has good taste in wine behind it. One has good taste in wine, but this fellow he's telling me about, there's a professional enologist who keeps control of the technical aspects to make sure everything's in order, but he has kind of the house palate besides his own, who knows how to make this stuff and has a great sensibility about wine. And tell me again, Juan, what it is that he does.
Ramón Vietes Moncho, que tiene ahora mismo sobre 50 años, de los cuales 30 los ha pasado trabajando en esta casa.
He's been 30 years here. He's 50 years old now, so he started when he was 20.
Entró porque aquí estaba trabajando ya su padre como bodeguero.
His father was a winemaker too.
Trabajó hasta su jubilación.
He worked here to his father until he retired, and now Ramon Moncho in Gallego, has worked here for 30 years.
Y es un bodeguero fantástico porque es una persona muy seria.
He's very serious.
Muy rigurosa con su trabajo.
He's very rigorous with his work.
No deja nada al albur de es decir, al azar. Viene todos los días, sábados y domingos, a vigilar cómo evoluciona el vino en la fermentación.
Comes every day during the fermentation, including Saturdays and Sundays, to see how the fermentation is progressing.
Y cualquier cosa que ocurra con el vino, él está siempre sabiendo lo que está pasando.
He knows what's going on with these wines at any one moment.
Y eso es tan importante como la buena enóloga que tenemos, como la buena variedad de albareño o como el espíritu de la casa.
He says Monchos is as important as the grape variety of the vineyards and his enologist who comes to, to measure the effects of things.
De manera que con una buena uva, un buen bodeguero y una buena enóloga, además de los fantasmas de la casa, yo creo que todos esos son los secretos.
So besides having, there's a difference between an enologist and a bodeguero. There's a winemaker. Enologists a lot of times are technical, scientific, who measure everything that's going on and tell you if something's going wrong or something like that. But Moncho and Juan too, right? Tú tienes para la casa también. Okay. Juan and Moncho have the sort of palate. And he said those things plus the grape variety the place where it's grown, all the elements that go into it are important. And in this winery, the ghosts of the house, the house ghosts who help raise this wine, make it what it is. What a lot of people don't mention, and here, because it's a white wine, it doesn't have as much of an effect because they're in tanks. But any bottles that are there, I mean, look at these thick walls and stuff. Nobody ever talks about where a wine's aged and where the climate is. The difference in climate here in Cambados, where it's cool a good part of the year, but in red wines it's much more important. But when he talks about the house ghosts, you know, there are elements in every winery, including yeast that are in here, that affect everything. So that's why it's unique. Not easy for two wines to be the same, but a lot of people have managed to do it to their detriment. But here it's unique. This wine is unique, and I don't think it's like any other Albarino you're going to taste. Who understands the philosophy of the house? That's very important. And knowledge can translate the philosophy of the house, how he and Moncho want a wine to taste and think it ought to taste. And Moncho comes from his father being here, so this is a secret in Europe that we don't have in many places in the States. He has what he learned from his father and what he tasted in his father from the time he was growing up, and now he has his own thing. But so his palate probably has a historical memory of maybe 50 years. There's another guy like that in Rioja that I'm going to introduce you to one of these days, but that's important to have a palate that carries the style of the house. And that's why some places are Grand Crus forever, because they have a continuum of a house palate, not of somebody who has very good taste in wine and wants to maintain it, and that's what they do.